Good day to everyone, and thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your day to spend some time with us here at AD Solutions. As some of you know, this is our fourth webinar in the series of 4 on securing and protecting Active Directory. Today we are going to be talking about privileged access in Active Directory, and I'm going to enlighten you on some different things regarding privileged access, primarily the ways that privileges can be granted. And once we know how those privileges can be granted, we have to know what those settings are, how to protect them, what they should look like, and then over time, how to monitor them to make sure that they remain consistent. For those of you that haven't been involved in our securing series, welcome for today. And the rest of the webinars are actually recorded and available to you in a link. So if you email us, we'd be more than happy to send you a email with a link to the other webinars. Of course, I will go over some logistics as we get started. This is being recorded in a couple of days. You will be receiving an email with a link to this recording. We encourage you to review it, share it with others so that they can get the information. I think this is one of the most important topics of the 4 that we've gone over, but that doesn't prohibit the other 3 from being unimportant. I just think this one is so important because we're talking about privileged access, and hopefully I'm going to enlighten you on some information that Microsoft provided about 3 years ago with regard to privileged access. Also, some other logistics. As I said, my name is Derek Melber. For those of you that have been involved with us for the entire process, I'm just going to quickly go over some online resources, just so those that haven't been involved know where to go. If you go to our main landing page, you can get to our blog. Our blog has a lot of great information regarding Active Directory, security, group policy, ITOM, ITIL, all these different things. So you come in here, do a search. All of our blogs are less than 5 minutes of reading time. Really good information for you about different parts of Active Directory. Another excellent resource is if you hover over products and go to our security hardening site, you will see that this site is dedicated to securing your environments. Much of this is actually related to privileged access. So you can see here user rights, groups, user information, group policy, and all of these are in some way related to privileges. If you click on any one of these areas, you can see that we have dedicated blogs and videos for them. We also have an excellent resource on privileged access in Active Directory, which is our Dummies book. Come to any place on our webpage, see this icon, click download the free ebook. I guarantee you it's a fun little read. It's only about 30 pages in a small format, but certainly something that is extremely valuable to you as you go through trying to secure your environments. So those are some different resources. Obviously, one of the most important resources I think is possible is my email address. Please, if you have any questions, whether it be about today's content from previous webinars, or just really anything related to Active Directory, security, group policy, I am here to help you. I've been an Active Directory and group policy MVP for 17 years, and it is my pleasure actually to track down solutions for you. So please email me with questions, anything that you have. All right, let's get started. With regard to the topic today, let me ground you with where we've been so we can point out where we are now. We started talking about the idea of tracking changes that occur in Active Directory, and I walked you through all the different permutations on how to do that. So I walked you through group policy to set up auditing, advanced auditing. I went into the SACL, the System Access Control List in Active Directory. I showed you how to set that up. Many of you emailed me for that document, and I sent that document to you so you could set it up. And once you have it set up, things start to show up in your event viewer. So if I jump over here to my domain controller and we go and look at our event viewer, all the information that I am tracking here in my live environment shows up here in my security log. So you'll see that I have 131,000 events, information that is, or changes that occur, things that occur in Active Directory. I'm tracking all that information, so you can see that here. And this is really the root of where we're going to glean information. In our second part of this series, we talked about endpoint security, because really when we look at access, threats, security, we have to start at our endpoint. So I gave you some excellent kind of guidance on the idea of securing your endpoints and how to do that. And then yesterday, which was our third in the series, we talked about insider threats, really the attacks and how we can monitor those attacks, what we need to look for, common attacks such as attacks against passwords, LAN manager, NTLM. So those are things that we went over in the first three, and today we're going to talk specifically about privileged access. And what I want to do is I want to ground you, as I always do, on the concepts that we want to talk about for today to kind of give you an idea of why this is important. So when we talk about privileged access, really many of the security breaches that occur are related to privileged access. So when we think about the idea of securing privileged access, it's because we're trying to negate breaches. But unfortunately, as I see around the world, most organizations aren't secure. And the reason they're not secure, the reason they aren't looking at privileged access and controlling it, is security isn't convenient. And so we have to weigh, what do we want? Do we want a 30-character password, which is inconvenient but secure, or do we want a 7-character password, which is very convenient but absolutely not secure at all? These are the decisions that we make in an organization. Hopefully what I've done is I've enlightened you throughout our series here on things that you need to decide to make sure that you are having a good balance between convenience and security, so that you can up your game with security. Now, when we look at data breaches or security breaches, however you want to define them, they're on the rise. Every single day, someone new is attacked. If you go out to your favorite search engine and just do a search on recent data breaches, someone's going to come up. And it doesn't really matter who you are. You know, it doesn't matter if you're social media. It doesn't matter if you're insurance. It doesn't matter if you're military, government, finance. Everyone is susceptible to this. And if you go out and look at how much information is being stolen, it is terabytes of information. So we aren't doing our job. I really don't think that most organizations are secure. And I think the proof of that is these numbers continue to rise. And when I talk to administrators around the world, I talk about certain configurations and they don't even know about those configurations. For example, the configurations I talked about yesterday with LAN manager and NTLM, how to secure those settings. These are easy ways that attackers are getting into our environment, so we need to secure our Active Directory environment. Now, a couple of years ago, I think it was just about 2.5 years ago now, I was at Microsoft Ignite, Microsoft's flagship technology conference, and they had quite a bit of information related to security. This is one of the graphics that I pulled from them. Now, there's a lot of numbers on here. There's dollar amounts and there's 1 in 5 and all this. But the thing that I really want you to focus on in this graphic from Microsoft is the middle number, 146 days. According to Microsoft, for their Active Directory environment, a typical Active Directory environment, once an attack is successful inside of Active Directory, the administrators aren't aware of it for 146 days. Now, these are Microsoft numbers. So I'm not making these up. No publication is making these up. These are directly from the inside of Microsoft outward. And the reason they're telling us this is they want to get our attention. I want to get our attention. If you have been attacked successfully and someone has domain admin credentials in your environment, 5 months of time is far too long for them to have access to your information. They're going to be able to get everything they need, and you don't even know they're there. So what we need to do is we need to pay attention to what is happening in our environment. We need to really evaluate, I guess, what is occurring in our environment, and it's actually not as difficult to do that as you think. So what we need to really think about is where we're being attacked, okay? And how we're being attacked. This also is from that same conference. And this is another graphic from Microsoft. And this is their view of a timeline of an attack on Active Directory. Now, everything you see here in green, you notice this is research and preparation. This is an unknown amount of time. No one knows how much time is spent, but this is spent on social media. This is spent on your company's website, other employees, maybe their Facebook page, whatever it is, right? And then they attack, and the first host is compromised. Now, when the first host is compromised, we have to consider this first host, right? What is this first host? Is it a domain controller? Nah, probably not. Is it a server? Most likely not. How about an endpoint, a workstation? Absolutely. Now, if we are being attacked at our endpoints, this is a problem because many of us don't pay attention to our endpoints. But according to Microsoft, once the first host is compromised, it only takes 2 days to get domain admin and credentials. Think about that. Once one of your employees' laptops or desktops is compromised, it only takes 2 days for that attacker to get domain admin credentials in your Active Directory domain. Then it takes you 5 months, 150 days, remember the 146, to actually notice that you have been attacked. This is a bad timeline. This is really negative. This is indicating that we do not understand what's going on with our security. We do not know how to monitor and alert when we have been attacked, when we're under attack, and when we've been compromised. We don't know. So if we go back to this concept of privileged access, how important is privileged access for your endpoints? Let me give you another graphic from Microsoft. Now, I always promote that your employees not have membership in the local administrators group on their computer. Some of you say, I have to do that because I have an application that they run and the application requires that. Okay, if that's the case, here's your first action item. You all know that I do action items. Here's your first action item of the day. You're going to go out and do research on software that allows you to remove the user from being a local administrator but still function that application. If you can do that. Now imagine, let's say you have 1,000 desktops. Imagine you remove the user out of the local administrators group on 1,000 desktops. According to Microsoft, 100% of all IE vulnerabilities go away. Now think about that. One setting. We all look for that golden setting, right? Here it is. Take users out of the local administrators group on their desktop. Take users out of the local administrators group on the desktop. It gives you your best bang for the buck. It negates the threats at the outside of your environment, your endpoints. Attackers now have to attack some other place because they can't attack endpoints because they have no privileges there. Privileges equal attacks and successful attacks. If we can negate this, we're much better off. Okay? Least privilege, standard user. We want to live in this space. This is really where we want to be living with regard to our environments. Okay? Now, in the same conference, Microsoft presented this slide, which is their promotion on their security options, right? Security features and capabilities. And over on the left, you see privileged identities. So I want to focus on that. So Microsoft talked about these privileged identities, and they talked about 2 technologies, one called JIT and one called JIA. Now, JIT stands for just-in-time administration, and JIA is just enough administrative access. These 2 technologies are Microsoft's flagship technologies for securing privileges in Active Directory. Now, I was just in the last 2 weeks in Saudi Arabia and in Bogota, Colombia. In those 3 events that I went to, there were over 500 administrators. Only 2 of the 500 administrators had even heard of these technologies. That is not uncommon. When I ask administrators around the world if they've heard of these technologies, they haven't heard of them, less than 5%. So then I ask, how many have actually implemented it? I'm still stuck. In 4 years, 100,000 administrators representing companies around the world, 2 organizations have implemented JIT and JIA that I've come in contact with. Now, more have implemented it, but I feel I have a pretty good sampling around the world of administrators and organizations. I went to 25 countries last year, 75 different cities that I did presentations in that I'm asking if they've heard of JIT and JIA. This is a problem. Here's why JIT and JIA isn't that successful. Look at the very first requirement. It requires a dedicated bastion forest. No matter what you have right now, it's not enough. You must install another forest. So for you to implement the Microsoft flagship technology to secure privileges, you have to spend time, you have to hire more people, you have to spend the money and the effort, the management, all of that just to get secure privileges. I don't agree with that. I don't agree. I absolutely do not agree that you need to install JIT and JIA. What I'm going to suggest you do is you go through that security hardening site. You follow the techniques that I'm going to show you here. If you follow that security hardening site and you go through all those security areas and you maintain good posture when you administer your Active Directory, your servers, your desktops, you configure things correctly like I talked about in our Endpoint webinar, when I talked about last time with regard to looking for attacks, you will have a great grasp on the security within your Active Directory environment. You will know when you're under attack. You will know what the security settings are. You will know when things change. And you don't have to install another forest. Okay? So let's talk about securing privileged users. We have to track privileged users. Now I know that you, the administrator, the one that's on this webinar right now, you are a privileged user. You have to track yourself. You have to track others. This is not about being big brother and tracking people. This is about your environment. If something changes in Active Directory, you have to be made aware of it. You can't just hope that administrators do the right thing. You can't just hope that no one has breached your Active Directory environment. You must know at all times who has privileges and what they're doing. It is vital for the security of your environment. So, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to monitor logons. Okay? Well, what does this mean? Well, let's take, for example, that you have 10 Active Directory administrators. One of you is on vacation. Well, what if that one account throughout the day, the first day of that user being on vacation, is constantly having failed logons? Well, they're sipping a drink on a beach in the Caribbean. They're not trying to log on. If they're not trying to log on, who is? An attacker. We have to monitor when certain users are being attacked. Now, if we go back to the beginning of my conversation here, I said that we can track that, and here we go. This is tracking that. The security log is tracking all of these types of events. So if I have any type of attempted logon, it's going to show up here. But how do you find that in 131,000 events? Who has time to sift through this? So what I'm suggesting is that you get tools that allow you to leverage the information that you're already tracking in that security log, but giving you visibility into that. I want to be able to look at reports of when administrators fail to log on, right? I want to know when domain, let's see if I have it. If I, administrator modifications, it may not be in this list. Oh, here we go. Administrative user logon failures. I want to know when someone fails to log on as an administrator, because most likely what is happening in this scenario is someone over, let's hope that this machine is joined to my domain, right? Let's hope that when someone fails to log on, we now can see that information. We know that that user tried to log on and they failed to log on. This becomes vital for us. Look at that. I have it in real time. It's a bad password. Wouldn't it be great for you to get an email, an alert telling you when an administrator type person fails to log on. Look at this, I already have an alert here. I can send you an email, I can send you an SMS. Without something in place indicating that bad behavior is occurring for your privileged users, you aren't aware of it. We also want to know when password changes succeed or fail, because anyone can go in and try to change someone else's password. You know that, right? I hope you know that. I mean, right here, I can go to any machine, I can hit Control-Alt-Delete, and I can change a password. All I have to do is put in the user's name, right? So I put in the old password, I put in the new password, I put in the new password, and I go, right? So all I have to do is put in the right one. I do have to know the old password, but the idea is that someone can try to change someone else's password. We have to know when this is occurring. We also have to know the actions that are occurring. We have to know when administrators are performing things in Active Directory. Now, the things that we can perform in Active Directory are pretty obvious, right? I mean, I can come in here to Active Directory user computers. I can add users to a group. I can modify administrative users, right? I can reset passwords. I can go over here and I can create new users and computers, new OUs. I can move users and computers from one OU to another OU. I can do all these things. I can even go in and delegate control. When any of these actions occur and more, you have to be made aware of them. How do you know if one of your administrators delegates control? Without being notified, how do you know that? Well, I recommend that what you do is you start tracking all this. That's what we talked about the first couple of webinars in this series. And what I need is I need to know when any changes are made in Active Directory. I need to know who made the change, where they made the change, what was changed. I need to know all the details, okay? And I also need to be able to go to administrative user actions. I need to be able to go in and say, all right, I want to know specifically what Derek has changed in the last 24 hours. And there's my list. This is everything that Derek has changed in the last 24 hours. Those of you that were there yesterday, you see what I changed yesterday, okay? These are critical pieces of the puzzle. If you do not know what your administrators are doing, you are not aware of the security within your environment. It's that simple. I highly recommend that you set up alerts for everything that I'm mentioning today. I mean, look at these alerts that I have. I have alerts for virtually anything that can occur within my Active Directory environment. GPO permission changes, admin group modifications, user right changes, password policy changes, service account changes, GPO changes, you name it, I'm actually monitoring it and I'm sending an alert for it. These are powerful things, right? I mean, access control list changes, as I just discussed. If someone goes into Active Directory users and computers and they perform a delegation here for an OU, and they decide to go in and say, all right, I'm going to add a particular group to have the ability to reset passwords for everyone in HR, how do you know that that occurred? This is so difficult to see. Microsoft does not track this by default. When you email me, I'll give you the document. In less than 15 minutes, you can set it up. Because this information, believe it or not, it shows up here. It just went through this log. But how in the world are you going to find it? You're not going to find it. You know why? You don't have to find it. Here's why. I've already told you that it changed. Right here, I've already sent you an email. Stop relying on the system reporting for you. Start relying on the system updating you. You need the system to tell you when essential changes occur. The changes are occurring because someone with privileges made the change. Who? We don't know until we go in and we look at it. We can go in and look specifically at the different reports of OU permission changes. I can go in here and know that Derek made that change. I know exactly what changed. I know the new and the old ACL. This is the power of having a tool that can help you with this, a solution. And all of these things need real-time alerts. Every single one of them need real-time alerts. Now, because we're talking about privileged users, we also have to set up the environment to inform us of when we're under attack, when someone is trying to get privileges in our environment. Now, if I come over here to my desktop and I try to log on as administrator, right? Now, you'll notice that it moved me to my local one, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 80 solutions, and it moves me to my domain. And if someone tries to log on as administrator, it's going to record that for me. I need to know when someone tries to do that stuff, okay? But the good thing is, administrator in my Active Directory environment, this user right here actually isn't the real administrator. Let me prove it to you. If I go into administrator, I can go down here to my attributes. I can pull up my object SID, and you will see right here it ends in 1195. This is not my original administrator. This is a honeypot. This is the perfect honeypot. I renamed the original administrator, and then I created a new administrator. What did I rename it to? That becomes a little more difficult. Sure, I could go through every account, but why not go to a tool that's actually designed to report on the live Active Directory environment, including SIDs. So I can come in here to AD Manager Plus, go to my reports, go to my user reports, look at all users. I can include the SID for the account. So I can come up here and I can make sure that I include the security identifier. It's somewhere in my, oh, there's SID's already there. Sorry. It's right here. Duh. So I look for SID and I go down. I could search. It's only a couple of clicks because I know where it is. And right here, we're looking for the 500 SID. I just passed it. Sorry about that. Moving too fast for my own liking. And right here, you'll see 500. I renamed it to James Bond. So with the right tool, I can find objects in my environment. Without the right tool, you are stuck with this. You are stuck. Sure, you could write a PowerShell, an LDAP query to pull the information out. But why would you want to go to the trouble of doing that? I simply went to a tool, pulled up a list, and then I can come in here and I can do a quick search even, right? I could do searches. I can find things much faster than you can find them with scripting. So in this idea of privileged users, we want to monitor the behavior. We want to know when privileged users are under attack. We want to know when someone is trying to break into a privileged user, but we also want to know when privileged users that actually are real are performing actions. We can do that with a tool that allows us to see reports, generate real-time alerts from that. Now, we also need to look at privileged groups. Now, with privileged groups, what I want to do first is I want to break down into 3 categories privileged groups for you. Because if you just look at your list of groups, right? If I just go into Active Directory, users and computers, and I just get a list of all of your groups, right? So I come in here, I want to get a list of users, groups, and contacts in the entire directory, and I want to find now, wow, this is a big list of groups. So I don't want you to do this. I want you to go through it a little more methodically. Here's what I want you to do. First of all, you want to look for your built-in groups, okay? Everyone has the exact same built-in groups. List all of them that have privileges. Domain admins, administrators, enterprise admins, schema admins, group policy creator owners, all of these, okay? List them all. Then you're going to have application and service groups, okay? These are groups in Active Directory that were created, for example, SQL, when I installed an application. You might have Exchange, you might have SharePoint, you might have a third-party app other than Microsoft, okay? List all of those. Finally, you're going to have other groups that you just named, right? So here's IT managers. I have a help desk group, HD techs. All of these are privileged groups that I named, that I created, that are custom. List all of these. This is gonna take a little time, right? This is gonna take you at least an hour to go through and list all of your groups. For some of you that have group bloat, as I call it, this may take you 4 hours. You have to know the groups that have privileges. It's just a requirement, okay? Now you want to go in and you want to track these groups, okay? I mean, what you want is when someone, anyone, goes into your enterprise admins group and they add in another user. I mean, how many of you know right now that your enterprise admins group doesn't include someone that shouldn't include? You know why I know? Because whenever anyone is added to any of my privileged groups, I receive an alert. I know when someone is added to them. I get an email. I get an SMS. This is how I have the system communicating to me what's going on in my environment. Without this, you have no idea who has privileges. You must. Now, how did I add in all of my custom groups? I tell every single administrator a tip for picking solutions. Customize. You have to know how to customize solutions. If you can't customize solutions, you'll never use the tool. No tool knows your environment. Watch how easy it is for me to add in custom groups for monitoring. I go to configuration. Because I'm dealing with groups, I go to groups. This report right here is a default report. I edit that report and I add in the groups that I want to add in. That's how simple it is, and I'm done. That's how simple it is. The hard part is for you to document who has privileges. That's the hard part. Now, another thing that you must do is you must know who has membership in these groups so you can make sure they're correct. For example, administrators. Who has membership and administrators in your environment? Well, in my case, Derek, James Bond, and then 2 groups. Well, how do I get the groups within the groups and the members of those groups? Well, sure, I can click on them, but I just want a single get users recursively. You can't do that with Microsoft. But again, with the correct tool, you simply go to reports, group reports, you go to details, you pick your group that you want. In my case, it's administrators, and I generate, including nested groups, and there's my list. Notice I only had 2 to begin with. Now I have 9 users because I have users that are nested in groups. The power of a tool to help you with privileged users goes far beyond just the basics. It goes deep into what you need. So with privileged groups, document them. Know who has membership. Change the membership. Once you know who they are, monitor when those changes occur. It is the core of making sure that you can track who has privileges and what they're doing once they have privileges. Now, a third type of privileged account, beyond just normal privileged users and groups, are service accounts. We have to be able to track our service accounts. How important are service accounts to you in your environment? Well, I'm going to guess they're vitally important. I mean, if I just come in, right? I come into your environment, I go to one of your servers, I go to any one of your services, and I go to the logon and I modify the password here. Or I go into Active Directory, I find where your service accounts are, and I decide to disable one of them. I mean, if I disable one of your service accounts, what is that going to do to you? I'm going to assume it's going to break service, right? So what you need to do first of all is you need to know all of your service accounts and where they're configured. How many of you know all of your service accounts and where all of them are configured? That's what I thought. None of you. Maybe one raised your hand. This is a difficult task though, but watch this. The very first thing that I did when I came to ManageEngine was I went to the developers and I said, hey, can you do a favor for all the administrators around the world? And they did it within 6 months. We now have a service account management free tool that you pick all of your Windows servers. It only works for Windows servers and their services. But once you pick them, you simply go get service accounts from those machines that you pick. Some of these are going to be kind of out of band because they're not really, they're built in. So we also gave you a filter just for users. Pretty cool, huh? If you want to know the associated services, you can go get those as well. Now you can get from every Windows machine, desktop, server, domain controller, any Windows service that has a user associated with it, any one of them. You can now document it, export it as a CSV. Once you have that list, you simply go back to AD Audit Plus and you create a new report for all of your service accounts so that if they change, you can track it and be alerted. It would be under user modifications. You're going to create a new report profile. It's going to look just like this. You give it a name, you tell it user modification, and then you list everything that could possibly change for that account. Super simple. And then from the free tool, you add in all of your service accounts. Pretty awesome, huh? I mean, tell me another thing that you can do to control service accounts. This is going to take you less than 10 minutes of time to do it. And now, if any service account changes, right? Any service account changes in any way, I don't care what happens to that service account, you now receive a real-time alert that that changed. Hold on. Maybe. Hold on. Why, oh, why is it not? Let's go to my reports. Let's go to my service account. This is actually kind of an old image I'm using. Oh, here we go. It just didn't show up in the alert yet. Okay? I mean, this is some awesome stuff. This is some powerful stuff. This is telling you that something changed, right? I must have a configuration error, okay? Because it should just show up here. I may not have an alert for that, all right? But all I have to do is configure an alert. Every single report, look at these reports. Every single report, you can associate an alert to it. Every single report you can customize, and every customized report, you can have an alert for it. Awesome, awesome stuff. I'm telling you, this will change the way you administer Active Directory. So now, you have the ability to control, monitor, and be notified of actions that are occurring for privileged accounts. You know about failed and successful logons. You know about account management and when administrators perform actions. You know about other actions that are occurring. Let's say someone changes group policy. If someone creates a GPO, you can get an alert for that. You can also look at deep into your security with your service accounts. I can generate for you reports on service accounts and when they're modified. I know when these things change in any possible way. Any report can also have an alert. You have visibility now into your Active Directory environment. Okay? Any change, any modification for any privileged account, now you are aware of what's going on. Okay? Anything with these accounts. And I can guarantee you, if you follow these guidelines for privileged users, privileged groups, and service accounts, your attack surface is going to be reduced dramatically. Your knowledge of your security is going to be increased 100-fold. You have to know about security in Active Directory to be successful in denying attacks, into knowing what's going on for security and for compliance. Many of you on this webinar have to deal with compliance regulations. All of this goes back to that, okay? You never want to have a finding. If you know what security is and it hasn't changed because you haven't been told it's been changed, you now are compliant. It's a full circle. So in this 4-part series, I showed you how to set up the tracking, monitoring of changes. We talked about your endpoints. We talked about your threats inside. We talked about your privileged access. All of these things are the full encompassing concepts around security and Active Directory. Follow the guidelines that I went through in these 4 webinars, and you will have a rock solid foundation for security and Active Directory. You will know when you're under attack and all these different parameters. If you have any questions around anything we went over today, yesterday, in any of the 4 webinars, or really anything around them, email me, please. I'm begging you. All right? I'm looking for your emails. I'm hoping you email me so I can help you configure things. From this point forward, what do I recommend? I'll be completely honest. Everyone on this webinar, I want you to have AD Audit Plus free for 30 days. Download, install, start using it in 30 minutes, and then use it for 30 more days. It'll change the way that you administer Active Directory. Download it today. I'm serious. Just go download it. It's going to take you 30 minutes to configure it. If you don't have the configuration file, email me. That's my email address. I will send you a link. I want you to be successful. If I were in your shoes still today, because I used to be in your shoes as an administrator, the very first tool I would want is AD Audit Plus. It changes the way that you administer Active Directory. So that concludes today's webinar as well as our 4-part series. I want to thank all of you for your time. I want to thank all of my colleagues for their time as they were answering questions as they came through. I saw all the questions that came through and they were answered. If for some reason you were shy about asking a question, email me. If you have something that's been a problem recently, email me. If you want to know the events that are coming up, we actually have just now solidified in October, we are going to be in the LA area, the Houston area, and the Atlanta area for our Active Directory seminars. I just found out this morning. Please email me and I'll send you the dates. I'll send you the times. I'll send you the locations as we develop them. These are great opportunities for you to come to us and see firsthand and get the solutions that you need. Okay? So this wraps up our time. I want to thank all of you for your time. Again, thank my colleagues, and for myself and the rest of the AD Solutions team. Thank you for your time. And so next time I see you in a webinar, seminar, user conference, this is Derek Melber. Have a great rest of your day.